mentioned something, and in fact, he's just repeated it, and it brings to the fore an issue that you have been very, very consistent about. You've been waging some crusade against it, which is the rumor which was going around that President Mahama was contemplating on seeking a third term. And you've been on this platform several times, and you said, look, if it is true, the president should desist from it. And if there are also persons who are talking him into that idea, they should watch it. The president has broken his silence on this matter. There are some who say he shouldn't have even said it at all, but some say it's a good idea. Where do you stand?
Well, first of all, I mean, I've been very, very vocal on this matter. And I'm keenly aware of the fact that there are some elements in the National Democratic Congress who are very angry with me. And they think that I have no business, raising these issues and so on. I mean,
really?
if you go on my X page, you see their comments, plenty. You understand? But let me make this point clear. There is no evidence whatsoever that at any time, at any stage, President John Dramani Mahama contemplated amending the Constitution to go for a third term. There's no evidence. Just pure speculation and pure propaganda. You remember when the issue of the removal of the Chief Justice started, the NPP's main point was that all of this is in furtherance of an ambition to amend the Constitution for President Mahama to go for a third term. President Mahama himself did not at any time give any indication that he wanted to go for a third term. And that was very clear. So what he has just said does not contradict the position he had taken earlier on. It just helps to clarify his own position on future elections and what role he expects to play in it. Now, maybe you know. Maybe you know. I mean, I have a very excellent relations with President Mahama. Not only President Mahama, many other presidents in the past and so on have been my friends, But President Mahama was on the left, you understand, and participated in many progressive activities before and so on, you understand. And all the time that I've known President Mahama at close range, I've come to the conclusion that he's a consummate constitutionalist. Consummate constitutionalist.
What does that mean?
He believes in upholding the Constitution. He believes that the Constitution sets forth standards which must be obeyed, even if you do not agree with the provisions of the Constitution. Until the Constitution is properly amended and adopted, whatever is in the Constitution ought to be followed. He's a consummate constitutionalist, okay? I've also known from my relationship with him that he's not driven by ego and reckless ambition. And all those who know him, you ask them, they will tell you the same. Even if you were to ask former President Nana Akufo-Addo, I'm sure he will tell you the same things about John Mahama, okay? So right from the beginning, I was sure that he, as a person, was not going to fall for this recklessness. I knew that he wouldn't fall for this recklessness. However, the clamor for him to go for a third term was increasing. I mean, the tempo was increasing. And I'm sure that you remember that a number of chiefs actually jumped in, held press conferences and so on. There was one particular chief who said that very soon, Bibiani will be surrounded by motorways and so on. And that he has done so well that we should amend the Constitution and give him a third term and so on. And that is why I made the intervention. I made 2, 3, 4 interventions, urging him not to fall for this extreme recklessness. One, because of the knowledge of history. You understand? Look, boss,
Oh.
I'm much older than you.
Of course,
you know?
of course.
So I've seen a lot of stuff.
Of course, we used to read from you.
Look,
when you're in the right.
Acheampong became one of the most popular leaders that this country ever had.
Sure.
Acheampong was so popular. 1972 all the way to about 1976 and so on, he was so popular. And his popularity was based on his concrete achievements. You understand? He reversed the devaluation of the cedi, which was very important for business and commerce and so on. Clear. He embarked upon Operation Feed Yourself and Feed Your Industries. Ghana became self-sufficient in food production in 2 years. He took a strong anti-imperialist stand. You understand? He started the production of organic fertilizer and so on. He did so many things and became so popular. Then, praise singers jumped in and said, look, Acheampong had done so well that he should stay on forever. And they came up with this silly idea of Unigolf. That is what killed Acheampong. In the final analysis, when Acheampong was being shot at the Teshi range, Ghanaians were cheering his execution. You understand? We should not put our friends, and people would like, through that. I've seen it before. Acheampong lost his popularity in a whip. And you see, when that happened, then they had to mobilize all kinds of group, organizers council, peace council, and community to campaign for union government. So a lot of resources were diverted from the national development effort into waging this useless campaign. Okay? His own democratic credentials suffered. He was a coup leader. No doubt he was a coup leader. Okay? But his democratic pretensions, let me say pretensions, collapsed. Collapsed completely. And eventually he was executed at the firing range. So this is something which has guided me most of the times. Now, I'm not the only person. Dr. Nyahoda Hotamako, if you remember, also wrote a piece about why it would be reckless for anybody to push the agenda of Mahama coming for a third term.
In fact, he forwarded it to me last week.
Okay.
On the
Dr.
show.
Nyahoda Hotamako,
Yes.
Togbe Dr. Nyahoda Hotamako. And he also made reference to what happened to Acheampong. You understand? Yes. He made copious references to what happened to Acheampong. I think we should be serious. Look, if you really like John Mahama, if you appreciate what John Mahama is doing and so on, protect him from himself and from recklessness. And the only way to do that is to stop this nonsense of a third term for John Mahama. It doesn't make any sense at all. You see, implied in that is an assumption that of the 35 million Ghanaians, only one is capable of leadership. That's an insult to the whole of Ghana. If anybody comes today and says, Ghana, 35 million people, there's only one person who is capable of leadership, don't you consider that as an insult? It's a blatant insult. You understand? And to be honest with you, I felt very proud when President Mahama said that he would not be on the ballot. You know, I mean, President Mahama has, as I say, he's had some master strokes in his political life. One of his master strokes was the decision to select Professor Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman as his running mate. First woman vice president in Ghana and so on. It provided a dream. It became a beacon that people looked up to and so on. That was a master stroke. This is his second most important master stroke, his decision not to be on the ballot. There are many problems associated with that. I'm aware of it. You understand? Already, there are so many people in his administration who have started campaigning to become president and so on. Yeah. If I were him, I would sack them.
Oh, why
yes.
Yes.
Because listen, there's an agenda to be pursued. There's a program to be followed. The next 4 years he has to show, he has to build his legacy and so on.
Yes.
Those people are diverting attention from the effort to improve agriculture, to industrialize the country, to improve the value of the currency and so on. And they're diverting attention to to some useless ambition of theirs. You understand? They are not focusing attention on his mandate. And that is why he has to sack them to set an example.
Even if they are meeting their KPIs? Targets you've been giving, I'm meeting those targets.
Can we mention names of some of the people who are coming up and see whether they are meeting their KPIs? Do you want us to do that? You've been in power for 8 months. Some of them are ministers. As we sit here, even me as a journalist who is reading constantly and searching for information and so on, I don't know what their program is. And they've already jumped into the race, wanting to be president. President for what? I'm so happy that the chairman of the party, Mr. Asid Luketia, has made a very brilliant, eloquent statement on this matter. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yes, I've seen it.
And he has said that, look, in 2028, we as a party will be campaigning on the legacy of John Mahama. So if you don't build that legacy and you jump into this silly race, and then there's no legacy and so on, your ambition will collapse. So if you are sensible and you have an ambition and want to pursue that ambition, work on the agenda 2024 to 2028. That's what the chairman of the party said. You understand? Now, more. The type of democracy we are practicing is troubling. This type of democracy, what it's producing now, is self-declared leaders. So you go and stand in front of the mirror in the morning, you think you are handsome or beautiful. You put your hands in your pocket and you think you are touching some money. Then you begin dreaming about becoming president. Self-declared leaders is what will happen. That is what this democracy is producing. The proper definition of leaders are those who are ready to make the most sacrifice in the interest of the collective. That is how leadership emerges. Leadership is about those who have what it takes to do extraordinary things, things that the collective is not able to do, or is difficult to find people within the collective who are capable of doing. That is how leadership emerges. But in our case, it's become a competition of the wealthy. And that's why some people wake up and say, look, I have so much money, I spend more money than you in the last election and so on, and therefore, I'm the most qualified to be leader. You know, and we've even had a case of somebody coming up to us, to the Ghanaian people, and telling us that he looks like Nkrumah, so we should vote for him. You remember that?
Yes.
Or you don't remember?
I know.
You want me to mention the name?
I'll be happy.
I'm not on this platform to crucify people. Okay.
Yeah.
You understand? So this self-declaration of leadership, it should stop.